What's up, you guys? This is Rob from Guy Plays, and today on the Daily Grind, we're going through our last batch of vintage non-meta weapons that are absolutely killer. So yes, you heard me right, this is the last of the vintage non-meta weapon series, and there are a couple different reasons for that, but it's not for the lack of the fact that we have a ton of amazing vintage weapons that perform quite well. In fact, I'm gonna glaze over a couple of them during the actual trial section of the videos, mainly because there's some that I really want to include, but I don't necessarily want to dedicate like a whole chunk of the episode to. My whole goal with this series was mainly to kind of get you guys thinking a little bit differently, because we're always looking for the newest, the next release, what's cool, what's hot, you know, where's power creep gonna take us next for some people, you know, some people are thinking that way. But I think that sometimes what we need to do is we need to backtrack and look at some old classics and see how, you know, new mods affect them, or maybe even the, well, I'm not gonna say it's a for sure thing, but you know, they've hinted strongly at it, that they're gonna be revamping the focus system, and we may be seeing that as early as TennoCon. So it's kind of like one of those things where how do these new mechanics affect old weapons? Not just like the last 6 months of weapons, but the last like 3 years worth of weapons, you know? Because there are some weapons out there that are gold, and there are some weapons out there that only need bumps in certain areas to drive them to become real powerhouses. So I want you guys to get out of this kind of like tunnel vision of new equals good, and more into this kind of like, let's look at the entire roster and see what affects what. And I think that the series has done a pretty good job of that. Plus, I'm also really tired of the meta discussion. I'm a little bit exhausted because it just seems like a stupid popularity contest that doesn't really matter when we have so many amazing things available to us. So hopefully this has kind of sparked that interest in you guys to look through your closets, do a little bit of rummaging, and explore and experience different parts of Warframe that maybe you haven't experienced in quite a while. So I hope I did a good job in that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and jump into my hot steaming loadout for you guys today. Alright, so before I close out the series, I definitely wanted to give this weapon a little bit of love, and I don't know what it is, but I seem to have this draw towards burst fire weapons. As you guys know, I am a big fan of the HEMA myself. The Burston Prime is absolutely amazing. So there's something about burst fire weapons that really just hits me in the right spots. And I really wanted to take note of the Burston Prime. Now, this was actually released in December of 2013. That's absolutely insane. It is currently a Mastery Rank 0 weapon that can take down level 150 bombards at a decent pace. I'm not going to say it's the most powerful out there. However, there is one little cheaty bit that I have to talk about because I do feel like it's a little bit cheating. With many of the weapons that I looked at, I always look about 2 years out. So they have to be at least 2 years old for me to really consider them. However, I usually don't touch weapons that have been buffed recently. So as you guys know, I didn't want to touch the Harpack or the Buzzlock or anything like that because they were very recently buffed. Technically, this was buffed in September 2016, which I feel like, I'm like, ooh, I don't really know. But the buff to it was an overall mechanical buff to burst fire weapons. So as you guys know, well, as some of you guys may or may not know, previously, fire rate only affected the time in between bursts, but now fire rate actually affects the burst speed as well. And as you guys know, because of the fact that the Burston Prime has access to Gilded Truth, it is 80% fire, or yeah, it's 80% fire rate, and you get the explosion and the heal from the what is it, Arbiters of Hexus effect. So I'm a very big fan of this. I've been a big fan of this for quite some time. Let's go ahead and pull Billy out for, oh my god, I actually typed in Billy. Sorry. Oh, my brain is absolutely obsessed with our little friend Billy here, who's put his life on the line for us. You gotta thank him after this series is over. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I feel like it's nice because it's really high accuracy. And even though we've got like some fire procs going off and some impact procs going off, it doesn't really seem like it's doing too much right now. But I'm gonna be honest with you, as you can see, as I always say with corrosive corrosive does extremely, it's one of those ones that kind of fool you a little bit because you don't feel like you're doing anything like for the first half, but once you get to the 50% mark on a lot of these high-level bombardy people, what tends to happen is all of a sudden they begin to melt, and you're like, what just happened? Kind of like there, look, it melted him so fast that he's already dead. It's really that powerful, you guys. But yeah, that's what I've always said about corrosive. It always feels like you're kind of not doing anything for the first batch of it. But at the same time, it's kind of like once you get to like the halfway mark, like it absolutely annihilates. And the thing about these weapons, especially when they have especially when you're kind of relying on the status to do a little bit of work, as you can see there, we had a much better run than the first run. Like, we started eating through him very, very quickly. And I think it's also mainly because of the fact that we got some, like, what is it, impact procs in there that kind of knocked the guy around just a little bit. So that's kind of like roulette when it comes to, see, now I gotta get on this side, and he's like, I can't get good headshots because he's doing a little too much of a dance. Stop dancing around, Billy. I know it's our last outing. But as you can see, and the thing about this is, it's also really got a good, strong Riven disposition. I think it's like one blob away from being the max disposition. So I've actually got a fairly decent Riven for this too. And, right, am I crazy? It's only one blob away. Yeah, it's only one blob away from being max Riven disposition, so you can get some really, really good builds out of this. But even without the Riven disposition, you can already see that it is doing some serious work. Alright, now before we move on to our secondary loadout, there are a couple weapons that I do want to call out. The Amprex is, I want to say it's kind of like the crit version of the Ignis, the way that it spreads. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, it's a bit hard to take down some of the heavier targets, but the way this thing crits along with a decent status, I don't want to say it's a status per second. We know status per second sucks, but it's actually not terrible for kind of like the lower tier enemies. So you can do some decent clearing with this, and then kind of like maybe slide in with the weapon that's got some condition overload to finish off the big guys, because you've already got a couple statuses on them already, and that one's absolutely fantastic, and that one's a little bit of an older weapon as well. I think that's all I'm gonna recommend for the time being. Is that it? I think there's a lot of other good weapons, but you also have to keep in mind that I'm a little bit in the time frame of like, I don't want to get weapons that are too new. Latron Prime and Latron Wraith, I'm gonna be honest with you, I played around with them both, and I feel like they were almost there, but not quite there. They were very, very close to being featured. I actually put a couple forma into each. I even picked up the Conclave skin because I was really, I was really intending on pulling it out for a video. Both of these are pretty gosh darn good. I'm not gonna say they're like the top tier round good, but I did quite enjoy them. So I think that's where we're gonna end it. Parasis did recently get a buff, so there's other good weapons out there, but legitimately I think that's where I'm gonna stop it for vintage weapons. Alright, so this one had to be in here, but I almost feel like it's a little bit meta. I don't know if you guys are gonna agree or disagree. A lot of people, when we talked about powerful secondaries, there's a lot of people that were saying Axe Stiletto Prime, Euphona Prime, Aklex Prime, people were talking about the Pandero. One or two people did mention the Vaykor Marelok, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to cover it. But then I actually was playing around with the Telos Akbolto, and I was also playing around with the Tysis, and those performed just a little bit under this, and I was like, well, if I'm going to talk about the Telos Akbolto, I might as well go ahead and talk about the Vaykor Marelok. Like, I might as well make that the primary one that we're going to talk about, because this one is absolute badassery. This thing just, the only thing you got to get used to it with is the rhythm. The rhythm of the shots. This thing's got incredible stopping power, and it's got a good load of criticalness to it, if that's a word. But as you can see, there's a little bit of a rhythm to kind of get it to settle back down into its place. But getting headshots with this thing, after you get that rhythm, it's pretty freaking easy. And it took up less ammo to kill that guy than with the other two weapons. Not saying that the other two weapons aren't great and don't have a little bit of a faster time to kill, because you can kind of like blindly spam the Telos Akbolto. But I was like, well, I don't know. This weapon is just, that much better. You know, and it feels, and I hate to say it too, it's kind of like the rhythm of it feels almost kind of good. It almost puts you in a little zen place. You're like, oh, boop. And the animation for its shots too are absolutely fantastic. So it's a Burston Prime animation. So part of me is like, well, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I was also really tempted not to put syndicate weapons in here, but I don't know, you guys. Like that, and that's a part of the reason why I also wanted to do the meta video, because I was like, all right, what can I talk about? What can I not talk about? Are syndicate weapons too meta? Should they not be a part of this? And the cool thing about this is, because of the fact that it does have slash procs on it, is during the reload animation, you're actually getting some damage off still, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. Okay, now for some extra suggestions. You've heard me talk about this already. I said the Tysis, and one of the things that I actually did to the Tysis is I started using, you know, I use its corrosive base, but I also tossed viral on it, and tossing viral on it in conjunction with the corrosive actually made it very, very good when coming up against heavily armored targets like our friend Billy. The other weapon that I wanted to point out was the Telos Act Bolto. They use the similar amount of what is it called? Of ammo in order to take down those enemies, but that one was also absolutely fantastic. The Static Core is one of those ones that I really wanted to talk about, but I feel like it's a little bit newer. Like, I really, really love, like, there's a part of my heart that absolutely loves the Static Core. It just makes me happy in my soul. If you guys haven't tried it, definitely try it. With the right build on it, you can strip armor. It looks like a fucking chopped up Duracell battery, like a fucking massive one for like the biggest dildo you've ever seen. Legitimately, it's fantastic. Now ooh, I didn't want to talk about this too. Vaykor Prime. Vaykor Prime is good, you guys, but it got a recent buff, so I can't talk about it. I shouldn't be talking about it. I'm gonna stop. We're gonna move on into a different category because I'm gonna gush, and I'm already gushing over the big dildo battery. Alright, so because I am a terrible YouTuber and got to rambling too quickly about the backstory of the Vaykor Marelok, I did want to point out that this was actually released in November 2014. It's Mastery Rank 6, so it does require a little bit of grinding, and it does take 100,000 standing. For Steel Meridian, you gotta be rank 5 in order to get it, but it is definitely one of those worthwhile weapons, so check this one out for sure. Alright, now admittedly, this last weapon I was super unimpressed by, and I think that's continuously the story when it comes to melee weapons, because I do feel like melee weapons have gotten a lot of love when it comes to their mod kits. Condition Overload is such a major mod. Weeping Wounds helps it out a bit, so does Drifting Contact, and I'm using Buzzkill in its place because it comes with a dash polarity straight out of the gate, but you could use something like Life Strike, or you could use, I don't know, you could use a bunch of different things. This is your fucking build, you do whatever the fuck you want with it. But there were a bunch of other weapons that were in contention for this series, but this is a Mastery Rank 0 weapon, and this is an anniversary weapon. So, you know, we had a little bit of the grind for the Vaykor. This one has no grind whatsoever. Alright, so I'm kind of sad because this is like the final dance. This is the final dance in this series with Billy. But yeah, so this is actually one of those weapons. So if you guys don't know, we get anniversary weapons every single year. Well, did we get anniversary? No, we got an anniversary Sayandana this year. Well, this is what happens is every year we get access to these weapons. They're either gifted to us, or I believe last year there were quests that were given for them. So, this is one of those weapons, and basically all you gotta do is do the quest and it's yours. It only comes around in like at the end of March, beginning of April. So this is one of those things that you may have to wait around for if you missed it, but it is definitely one of those things that I want you guys to check out. Its initial release was March of 2016, so legit, it just hit its 2-year anniversary and kind of like made it a... No! No, wait, hold on. Don't do it. Billy, no! No, Billy, no! But basically, yeah, it just got its kind of like 2-year anniversary mark. So it's nice to kind of see it here. Plus the model on it's really cool, and I'm gonna be completely real with you. There's somebody that actually messaged me in game that was like, you should check out the Vaykor Prime, and I was like, that's so funny because I'm currently leveling up the Dex Dakra, so it was like our brains are a little bit in the same place. So yeah, that's how you get your hands on it. It's really good with the slash procs and viral. So this is one of those ones that you know you kind of have to abuse. And see, that's the thing. Look at that right there. Like, I felt like we were legit sitting at like a third of his health left, and then it disappeared. Is that just me? Am I just seeing things, or is that kind of like the way that you guys feel too? I feel kind of like with some of these status procs, when you, even though the hits themselves don't necessarily look all that big, when you factor in things like time to kill, or maybe standing on an enemy's head, like their health just like kind of disappears. I'm like, where'd you go? Where did you go? This one is absolutely fantastic. It's something that I haven't revisited in a while. The only thing that I will say about this is it does feel a little bit slow. You don't really have enough crits to warrant something like Berserker to kind of pick up the pace on it a little bit. It's a little, if you like, here's the thing, if you like melee combos and you can access them, like I personally like, as you saw, I had put a different stance in that was opposed to the actual stance polarity, which is crossing snakes. I actually like crossing snakes. I know a lot of people are a big fan of Swirling Tiger, but I like the use of crossing snakes. I like some of the combos that are in there. So if you like combos and aren't just blindly mashing E over and over like I was in this video to kind of prove a point that you could kill the enemies, then, you know, this might be, it might not feel as bad because of the fact that its animation speed is a little bit slow. Alright, now additional suggestions. There are so many that I want to put out there because there are a lot of amazing weapons, and I know that I'm going to get caught up and I'm going to start talking about shit that I shouldn't talk about, but there were a couple that I really wanted to point out if I could find them. But I'm really bad at these kind of things because I'm a terrible YouTuber, as we all know. One of the ones that I wanted to point out big time, I actually scrolled by several times, which is the Prisma Dual Cleavers. These have a shit ton. I mean, look at it. Critical chance and critical status. Oh, like, blah. Like, that's the noise that you make, and it's got a crazy critical multiplier to go along with it. So you know that thing packs an absolute punch. Now, a lot of people, and this is one that I kind of want to talk about a little bit, real quick, is the Orthos Prime. That's not the model for it, but it's a different model for it. The Orthos Prime is actually really sick. A lot of people have said that, oh, I don't feel like it's in the meta, I don't feel like anybody uses it anymore. But if you're a stealth farmer, you know this weapon, because I think with, I believe that with a max primed reach, you're getting like 12 meters out of this thing's slide attack. Like, this thing has a massive reach, and when you have a stealth multipliers on, when you have maiming strike on, and you've got, like, you know, you got all the stealthy goodness that comes along with it, this thing hurts like nobody's business. So it is an absolute powerhouse. I don't really know what else to touch on because there's so many good things. A lot of people are saying that Ninkandi is absolutely fantastic. The Mios has been an old favorite of mine. We got to give some love to the Jack Katag. Like, that's been around for ages. It hasn't gotten any kinds of buffs, but it's also got that scaling mod along with it. Their melee weapons are like in a really awesome space. So just play, just search. A lot of people are saying dual Zorans, which a part of me, I'm gonna be real with you, I'm kind of asking in my head when this is gonna get a prime, because its stat, its crit stat is a little bit low. Could be a little bit higher. Would be really nice, and that would help drive the slash procs home, because it's got a high slash base. Just putting that out into the universe, I'm just saying. But there are so many things to talk about when it comes to the melee weapon category, so I'm going to shut my mouth and move the fuck along. Alright, so that about does it, you guys. You've heard all of my recommendations, and because of the fact that I'm kind of closing it out, and there are still other great things to talk about, vintage wise, what I want you guys to do is in the comments below, and I'm gonna set a couple parameters. I'm not really gonna fucking check that hard, to be honest with you, but I'm setting a couple parameters. At least make sure that the weapons that you are suggesting are at least 2 years old or haven't been buffed in the last 2 years, because that's one of the big things. There's some weapons that, you know, get tweaks occasionally, some rebounces and whatnot, and I'm like, that doesn't count. It's like they updated it for the new shit. Like, we gotta bring it back to the old school. So So if you guys have any recommendations, be sure to leave that in the comments below. Share and share alike. Be kind to each other as always. But that pretty much does it for this. If there's anything else that you would really like to see me talk about, and that's kind of like what I like about doing daily content. I know a lot of people are like, Rob talks about nothing. There's no new content to cover, so let's just talk about this kind of stuff. But I really think that these kind of conversations are important to have, mainly because of the fact that there are certain trends that occur within our community where it's very like narrow-minded, very kind of tunnel vision kind of shit. And I'm like, hey, let's break it up. Let's change things up a bit. Let's have a little bit of fun, and let's not kind of stay within the box that other people have created for us. Let's play outside of that. Let's do our own thing and enjoy ourselves while we do it. And probably enjoy ourselves more playing outside of the box than the people that are playing constantly, solely focused within that box. So I'm gonna leave you guys with that. You know, be kind to each other in the comments, but share. And as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.